So there's, interestingly enough, there's a couple of different patterns depending on where on the size scale that we're looking at companies, and also there are regionalizations and market specializations, each of which is behaving differently than the rest of the overall industry. So on a very large scale, big companies, the big acquisition-oriented businesses, are still buying. Their appetite is not quite what it was 4 or 5 years ago when there were a lot of deals to be had, but they're still buying and they're still looking to grow. And there's a lot of dynamics to the way that they're looking at acquisition as a part of their long-term strategic growth. But unlike in the past, where it was a buy what's available strategy, they're going after very select, very strategic purchasing opportunities. So they're going after markets, they're going after geographies, they're going after skill sets. Where they are looking to just get bodies, they are buying as if it was a mass hire rather than a strategic acquisition. And that's one of the big changes that we're seeing right now. So at the small scale, a lot of smaller companies are becoming available as the baby boom generation is approaching retirement, or in fact, a couple of years past retirement. And now they're looking at how do they exit? What's their retirement strategy? And how do they maintain the longevity and survivability of their company? The question is, who's the buyer for these firms? The large companies are not necessarily looking for small companies to the degree that they used to. They take as much effort, cost, and time as acquiring a large company, and you don't pick up as much skill sets, clients, or revenue base. So the question is what non-traditional buyers are going to be coming after these kinds of companies? And traditionally, what you would look for is an internal transition. The lieutenants of the current president or CEO would typically step up and pool their resources and purchase the company. But a horrible thing happened 10 years ago with the financial crisis, and a large part of that middle career executive left the industry, and they haven't come back. And so the most likely candidates for those companies are less available today than they would have been had we not had the financial crisis 10 years ago. A third dynamic that we're seeing is both regionalization and specialization. The hot markets right now, warm climates, Texas, Florida, Arizona, California. The hot industries, transportation, engineering, civil. Less desirable, but still certainly sellable, architecture firms, interior design, landscaping. They're still great companies. They're a little harder to sell. One piece of advice that we like to give to potential sellers is don't wait to start planning for your exit strategy. Imagine that this is a 5 to 10 year process, and if you wait until you're 75, you may not have enough runway to be able to sell the company. And then you're left to the worst possible solutions, a fire sale, or the most unfortunate circumstance when a company closes its doors because you can't find a buyer in time. So one of the questions that we receive from prospective sellers, often it's desirable for them to do an internal transition to their current employees. They care a great deal about them. They want to make sure that they're taken care of after they ride off into the sunset. But they also want to know what is it that they're leaving on the table by not doing an external sale. And so when we do a valuation process, we always look to the internal transition calculation to see what the value of the company is. But we also have the ability, by using multiple valuation methods, to evaluate what the company's likely sale value would be to a fair market external sale, or a strategic buyer who really wants to buy this company with these skill sets, providing this service in this geography. It's one of the strengths that PSMJ brings to the table. Because we've been in the industry for over 40 years, we know how the industry works. We know the nuance of profitability and revenue generation. We know who the markets are. We know who the players are. We know all of the changing dynamics about what markets are rising, what client base is on the rise, what geographies are looking more desirable, where we can pair one company with a very complementary partner and create more value than either of them has standalone. What we're always looking for is to create an opportunity where 1 + 1 = 5. One of the problems that we frequently see as a company prepares itself for sale is they'll approach professional valuation companies to estimate what the company is likely to sell for. And often they'll go to companies with a lot of credentials and a track record, and they've done hundreds of valuations, but they don't know the AE industry. And they don't know the nuance of revenue generation to overhead allocation to profitability. They don't know how to make the adjustments for a company that is less asset-based and more revenue-based. The typical architecture firm or engineering firm won't have much in the way of assets on their balance sheet. They generate their profits and their value creation by the people, by the skill sets, by the client base and the markets that they serve. And so because PSMJ has focused exclusively on the AE industry for the entirety of its existence, we know what the nuance is. We know how small changes in a company's balance sheet or P&L will add value or detract value from the overall likely sale price of a company.